Hi, my name's Renee and welcome back to Natural Mystic. Clairaudience. Now, practicing clairaudience is so simple to do and you can do it throughout your day. So the best way to practice information coming in through your mind is to take it really slow at first. So ask for your answers to be yes or no's and take what comes in, and it doesn't matter if it's wrong and it doesn't matter if it's right. Just learning to hear the voice inside your head is what's important. Now, for me personally, and I don't know for other people, I have asked around to make sure this is a common thing. Your thoughts and clairaudient information come in sort of in two different places. And what I really want to stress at the moment is clairaudience for a lot of people sounds like your own voice. So for instance, so right now, sing Mary Had a Little Lamb out loud, like Mary had a little lamb, and then sing the rest inside your head. Now be aware of what that sounds like and where it's coming. Now for me, it comes in here. It's sort of a frontal sound, and I know the difference because the sound I get through spirit or through psychic information comes through more around the middle and the back. Now that takes practice. When you first start, the information is just coming in. And you've probably been receiving, if clairaudience is something that you feel might be your main clair, you've probably been receiving this information for a long time and just assuming it's you. Learning good spiritual hygiene is a really good way to differentiate as well. So what you can do is you can set up times that you want to receive this information and then clear out times where you're not going to be receiving it. So for me, even though Claircognizance sort of runs throughout the day, it's really important to me that I have a little ritual that sort of opens up my clairaudience. So after years of that intention, now if I burn sage, spirit comes in really close because I'll burn sage before every reading. So for instance, like last night, I was having a little ritual for the full moon, so I burnt some sage and I set my intentions and I wrote some stuff down to release, and I felt spirit come in, and which I welcome. And then afterwards, because it wasn't a reading, I didn't close off like I normally do. So I was messaging away a friend on Messenger, and next thing I knew, I was lightly channeling spirit for her. And she said that, she's like, "You're channeling." I'm like, "Oops, I forgot I saged." So once you set that intention, you don't have to go back then. It's like setting your alarm and putting it on the Monday to Friday. Once you start with that intention, it'll just keep happening that way until you change it. So where was I? I got lost a little bit. Where the information comes through. Also, another good thing to know that if you're hearing ringing in your ears and it's not a medical issue and you have had that sorted, that's usually you're starting to get the information come through. A nice trick for that, and a nice game if you're at that point in your learning, is testing it. So speak, so ask it to stop, similar as you would to a pendulum. So ask it to stop, ask it to go again, ask them to make it louder, softer, all these things. And as you start to notice responding to what you're asking, it'll make you more comfortable with your communication with spirit. Also, another good thing to recognize when the information is coming through and you're hearing it, another way to tell if it's your voice inside your head or it's information coming in, is that once you get still when it happens, you'll start to realize there's a feeling, and everyone's is different. For me, it's sort of like a fluttery feeling in my chest that I know I've connected up. And that's where the information's coming from. I did ask this question of a few friends of mine, and they said they feel very grounded. Others said they just know it's come. It's different for everyone, but while you're practicing, being really aware is important, because it's those little nuances that will help you keep grabbing onto what's working, and you can let go of what's not. Clairvoyance. So for me, this was something I had to work really hard on. When I was a child, there was a few instances that had made me sort of really shut down this ability. Even though I have really clear memories of using clairvoyance as a child, it was the hardest one for me to open back up. And for a long time, I was very frustrated and didn't think I'd get to the point where I am now, and I'm still very much in a place of learning. So what happened with me personally is I ended up sort of almost losing my mind's eye. I was not getting any visual stimuli at all inside my head. So I'd meditate and I'd just have still darkness. So what I started doing was, I've lost my train of thought, guided meditations on YouTube, because they would bring me deep enough that I'd be able to tap back into what is rightfully mine and what I've always had. Another good one was if I had a spare moment, I'd just imagine doing things that I normally do that aren't hard for me to imagine. So I would imagine putting the plug in the sink and turning the water on, or the lock screen on my phone. If I wasn't looking at it, I'd imagine what it looks like, and then I could also tap into other abilities and imagine what the time is and stuff like that, and then I could go back and check afterwards. So imagination is key when it comes to clairvoyance, and that's why a lot of children are really good at it, and a lot of adults really need to work to get it back, because we don't have a lot of imagination anymore. Playing games and being childlike is another great way. Something I did, and if you have children, or you can even just do this yourself, putting them to bed, I started telling them stories that I'd make up myself, and we'd all lay there with our eyes shut and imagine the story as I was telling them. And I'd use very visual type of language. So I'd say we're underwater and it's very blue and there's sand and it looks like this, and I'd describe it, I'd give it a colour, and that's what we were imagining. So if you have the opportunity to that really worked for me. And after doing these few things and just sort of training my brain to think visually as well, I during my readings, I was noticing if I tap into spirit, I was getting very quick flashes of things. Like they were so fast that I'd almost miss it. And I didn't mention the first few. And then one day I thought, I'm just gonna ask. And this particular thing was a specific car from a specific time, and I asked and it was right. And then there was another one, and they were very obscure, which didn't help as well. I imagined that clairvoyance would look like a movie screen, and it'd be very laid out, and you just relay back the stuff. But for me personally, it's come in as just little flashes, and I'm sure it will become more movie-like as I progress. And that's kind of why I'm sharing and making this particular genre of video, is because for me, tapping back into all these things was a lot of hard work. I was very frustrated, and I couldn't seem to find videos that told it to me simply. Everyone was like, just do this and just open your third eye. And I was so frustrated. And I also had a lot of people around me saying, you're already tapped in. Spirit's telling me you're receiving their messages perfectly. But I didn't know how I was doing it, how it would sound, how it would look, and what to do to get them to then start giving me more. I wanted to save you the frustration. And if you have any questions that I'm not answering, because we're all so different and we all learn differently, please ask them below, because I have lots more. I'm just trying to keep the videos to a certain length so that they're not getting too boring. And I thought if I answer it generally, if there's anything else I can go into more depth. Claircognizance. Now, good tips for this is considering its knowledge. You're going to be paying attention to what's going on in your mind. Now, you're going to find that this pops up a lot when questions are asked. Or I find for me it does personally anyway. If somebody asks a question or they're speaking to me about something they're not sure about, the answer's just going to pop in. So the best way to train this is to play little mind games in your head when you're talking to people. So I find now that it's improved a lot more that, and it used to happen at the start, someone would go to say something and inside my head I'd hear what they'd say before they were going to say it. Now I sort of play the dialogue in my head and wait for them to say it, and if it's right, I give myself confirmation. So I acknowledge it and I thank the information for coming through. Or you can thank the universe or your spirit guides or your angels, whoever it is that you're getting your information from, and that's personal for everybody. As for tricks, as for tips for like hard and fast tips, automatic or writing was where I really found out that this ability was strong for me. So for a long time, writing was my crutch, and it was how I communicated with spirit or with my higher self. So I'd sit down, and when I first started, and you might find this when you first start as well, you're writing from your mind, and it can be page after page of just writing from your mind. And this is good anyway, because journaling is a wonderful way of self-soothing. So while you're starting, just write. Don't let your ego come in. Don't worry about your punctuation. Don't worry about your grammar. Don't worry about how your handwriting looks. Just keep writing. Before you start this, as a nice practice idea, set an intention and ask a question. So set the intention that you're going to speak to your higher self, or that you want to communicate with your angels or spirit or your guides or whatever that is, and then start writing. Now, at the end, read it back, because somewhere in between there, your mind might have slipped away and the message might have come through. So if it doesn't, just keep at it, because eventually you'll find it does happen. And don't get frustrated with yourself. Be thankful for the practice and be thankful that you let out what was ever in, well, whatever was in your head. So it's definitely something you've got to keep at. What else is there? Oh, and that's another thing, is sometimes I find when I'm giving messages or receiving information, if I keep my hands busy, if I set a menial task for myself. Now I find the best information comes for me when I'm driving. If I've got an issue, I jump in my car, and by the time I've arrived wherever it is I'm going, it's sorted. The information has come in and the problem's sorted. A lot of people, this is where shower thoughts come from. A lot of people get their claircognizance downloads in the shower. So yeah, if it's shower for you, driving, it could be washing dishes, it could be folding clothes, anything that's sort of automatic to you, that you're not going to be using your brain while it happens. Don't stress about this too much, because then your mind's going to take over. And once your mind takes over, it's either going to go blank or they're going to be your own thoughts. And don't stress if they're your own thoughts. Just let it come in. Eventually it will iron itself out. Clairsentience. Now, I didn't do a lot of work to open this one up, but I did do a lot of work to manage and control it. Because for a long time I was super sensitive to other people, watching the news, just emotions in general, and it was very overwhelming, to the point where I had to sort of block off from everything, and didn't find that much fun either. So I had to find a happy medium, and it's all about learning what's yours, and also coming to terms with it's okay to feel pain, and it's okay for others to feel pain, and emotions are just part of our process. Society makes it very hard to have emotions in general, so for the clairsentient, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. So a great way to practice it, if you are wanting to open it up and not close it down, is when you're standing beside people, First, become very aware of how your body feels. What do I feel? What are my emotions right now? And stay in those for a good 30 seconds. Let it imprint on you so you're very well aware of how it feels. Then set the intention to feel what's around you. Now you can visualize your aura coming out and getting bigger and mixing in with someone else's aura if that helps. And when you can feel, and you will start to feel your aura touch with somebody else's, then be still in that for a second and try and pick up what you're getting now. If you don't know these people, it's going to be very hard to get recognition, but it's not sometimes always the confirmation, it's the learning to feel your own feelings that really helps. Sometimes we're so busy, we walk around unaware of how we feel. I mean, that's a great exercise anyway. 3-4 times a day, stop. How do I feel? Ask yourself. It's really good to be in touch with ourselves, because sometimes we can be carrying around stress from the morning, from our drive into work, that we don't need in the afternoon. So it's good to stop and think, how do I feel? And if it's stressed and it's from the morning, you can let that go. So yeah, tapping into how you feel and how your energy feels is a great way to practice, because you'll be able to recognize when information that isn't yours comes into your auric field. So in this video, we've touched on 4 of the main ones and little exercises you can do to improve them and grow them. And you will notice a difference. I promise you, you will notice a difference if you keep steady practice. So make it something you do every night, and set an intention before you do it, and have your little ritual that you do it. It can be something as simple as grabbing a crystal, sitting in a certain spot. Just keep a good routine with it, and you'll find that every time you sit down, it'll be quicker for you to connect and quicker for you to get information. And celebrate when you do. Celebrate the little victories and be really proud of it, and then thank wherever that information has come from. That's really important. The next video, I haven't even given it thought. If you have any suggestions, you can pop them down below. I was really led today to do a video on telepathy, because I've noticed mine's grown extremely strong all by itself, and I've spoke to a lot of people who they're dealing with as well, or want to open it up. So maybe the next video will be on telepathy. Give me a like if you want a telepathy video on how to open it up, what it is, you know, all the ins and outs. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. There will be, I'm thinking as well, I might do a sideline to this series of horoscopes, just collective energy reads for maybe the week or the month. I'm still ironing out those little details, but see you soon.